Good afternoon. I can see it's lunchtime, and I really thank you people for being around in spite of, you might be feeling hungry and all that. But Sabin promises to keep you entertained and engaged, so let's begin. He doesn't need an introduction. He's somebody who belongs to Kerala, and obviously, somebody who's proved his expertise in many terrains, as the person who's introduced him just now mentioned. I'm just going right into the book. Let us do that, right? Because we are here to discuss the book. Sabin, so let us start with your career as a writer. So I'm also referring to the previous works like Cliffhangers and Shamal Days, and now the third one. And I heard you're also trying to write the next one. It's a collection of short stories.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. So this particular work, Tales from Kabristan, is the third in the series, and in some ways, it keeps the reference to the idea of migration keeps coming up in all the works. So I just want to ask you about this. Is it part of Malayali Muslim identity? This connection with the Gulf region and the question about migration. And obviously, it has a lot of positive effect to talk about the economy, talk about the living conditions and all. But there is also this question of, the trauma, the havoc it creates in the lives of those migrant families. So maybe we'll start there. What is this connection with migration that you are engaging with?
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. All my works, if you look at it's, this, you know, we are the less privileged. It's okay. Uh, all my works deal with the migration because I come from Varkala. It's a, we call it in quotes, Gulf pocket. So every other house has at least one person living, working in the Gulf, Arabian Gulf. So obviously, my father, who was a teacher, who started his career as a teacher in a college, left in the mid 70s to so-called look for the El Dorado in the Arabian, country. So he went away when I was 5, and all these years, I'm quite curious to know what's happening to these lives. I also lived as an expat for more than 15 years, so I know both sides of these lives. And I think the Gulf migrants are one of the most unique expatriate communities in the world because they are neither there nor here. Now things have changed. Now you can buy property and settle down. That's also for rich people. But then otherwise, who are they? They have, see, Deepak Unnikrishnan has written a wonderful book called The Temporary People. They're permanently temporary. So I would like to reflect in my writing. Somehow it keeps coming in. Even if I try to avoid, it's like an ugly duckling. It keeps coming in. The migration and the problems keeps coming into my narrative.
It's also not like going to Europe or America where you
No,
are kind of
no, no.
assimilated into that
There is a
world.
sad box tucked under your bed.
Yeah.
It tells the story. You may be pushed out anytime. You may be, now there are golden visas for 10 years and all that. But I'm talking about the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and to the mid 90s, things were different. We used to wonder what happened to my father. 15 days no letter because he was a regular letter writer guy. But then 15 years no news. Is he alive? Oh, is he there? Then we have to wait for a letter to come. It's not unique to my family, but it's most of the families who've got people living abroad, and so that sort of a thing. And I also used to look at very what's the life of these women on the other side.
Yeah.
That curious, because I grew up under the shadow of my mother. She was lonely sometimes. She used to be angry sometimes, for no reason. I never, as a kid, I never understood the frustrations, of a woman who doesn't have a man with her. So I used to, in all my books, you can see that,
Yeah.
I try to understand the nuances of this relationship and the frustrations of a wife of a Gulf expatriate,
Yeah. Yeah. So that brings us to the next question. In fact, I kept it for a later this thing, but I thought probably since you talked about women, uh, how was it like? How did it feel to think about, for instance, this book? I think the reviews also refer to that it brings out some kind of questions, engages with the question of women. There are bits of feminist kind of a response to women's experiences. So what is it like? How did you feel to kind of engage with the women's question in your work? Uh, I'm asking because Kerala is also, at least in the cultural scenario, we all think of Kerala as a place which has an inbuilt patriarchal kind of wave, in spite of literacy and all that. There is patriarchy, and that grains of patriarchy. All of us, like even I am somebody who lives outside Kerala, works outside Kerala, but like for me, when I come here, I experience the difference. It's very literate, very forward, but then there is that kind of a patriarchal, I would say, all over the place.
Yeah.
So how did it feel
Yeah,
to?
yeah, sure. Sorry. Patriarchy is embedded into us.
Yeah,
Whether it's there, whether we acknowledge it, that the monkey is on your back.
yeah.
We have to start changing our language. We have to change patriarchy in this society. It's so embedded, so deep. We don't we don't sometimes realize the kind of language we use. If we analyze it, it's rooted in the patriarchal, thinking and the conditioning that we're in. So we need to change. We need to change in the sense we need to change our language, our thinking. Otherwise, we fall into the trap. My daughter is a cricket player. She plays for the UAE national cricket team, and she stopped going to school for her cricket at the age when she was 8. And as a father of a daughter, a girl, I was thinking, what am I doing? She wants to play cricket. Should I let her go? Then all these questions of patriarchy, she questions me, Papa, why did you say that? That's a patriarchy speaking from you. That's my mom, my sister, my daughter, the three, and my wife, of course. Sorry, see, three women in my life. They're very important, and I try to look at life through their. Trying to.
Yeah,
I can't.
yeah.
I
You can't live that life.
yeah, because my wife had a stroke, and I was a single parent for all practical purposes for nearly 20 years now, and I know it's very, very difficult to be a woman. So that helped me to understand what are the frustrations of a woman. My cousins are all in the Gulf, and their wives. That's what. If you look at my novel's name is Tales from Kabristan. I don't know whether it's there. It
Yeah,
is there,
yeah.
but please
It's
pick up a
there
copy.
in the bookstall. Yeah.
And so I try to get under the skin of a woman and try to understand
Yeah.
her thing.
Let me like kind of narrow down the question a little more. I was also thinking about the Kerala context because we are not an illiterate patriarchal society, and the patriarchy we have is very, very literate. We have literacy, but we also have patriarchy. So
It's
it's
a
a
very
very
camouflaged patriarchy.
yeah, and it's
Let's
a very
call it,
strange
yeah.
kind of a combination.
Yeah.
So that's why, like it's quite interesting the way you look into women's lives and try to kind of bring out very, very nuanced kind of questions in terms of particularly about marriage, for instance, like what distance does to marriage, and like it's all not always negative. Also, you also show that some of these women are about to rise in certain situations because they are living away from men. So
Yeah.
there is a kind of power that come to them also because of that. So the both the sides are kind of narrated there.
Yeah,
Very
happy
strong
because,
women characters.
yeah, because the grandmother,
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
she ran the house when her husband died, and there is famine post the Second World War and all that. So yeah, the women characters, even in cliffhangers, Musa's mother is a very. She doesn't even have a name in the novel, but she's a
Yes.
very strong character.
Yeah.
And there are other. I don't know why I'm writing about women, but then but these characters are very powerful because I'm on the women's side because we're all patriarchal. I'm sorry to say
Yeah.
we are camouflaged, the society of a camouflaged patriarchy.
Yeah.
You know.
Sabin, like, let us talk also about something else. Being a teacher and like a professor, researcher who's interested in some larger questions, I'm also thinking in terms of the tension between nation and region. A lot of Indian writers in English now are focusing on the question of region. Like, we are not engaging with the question of the larger national identity that early writers, they used to write as Indians. But all of you write from like local places, your Varkala. Before that, I think Anis Salim has a
Yeah.
beautiful work, Small Town Sea. And like all of you are focusing on the region. Even Malayalam writers within Kerala, they are like, they have etched
Yeah.
out, carved places that they can
They're all
engage
trying
with.
to bring out a Macanto out of,
Yeah, but that
yeah.
also is fascinating because it is going against this whole unilateral vision of India, which is happening a lot now, no? The Indian identity. So in some ways, this is a counter narrative to that, that the nation is not a single entity. We are all people living in different. So yeah, tell us
Yeah,
more
I like to
about
make
how.
two observations here, Sharon. One, earlier, earlier, a couple of decades ago, when you talk about Indian writing in English, it was like, rightly so, Oxbridge, or you Oxford educated or Cambridge educated person, you come back, you live in an apartment in Delhi, you got maids and servants, and you look down on life, and in those days the regional writers used to say that, oh, these Indian writers in English have no idea about the smell of the soil, but maybe they're true to an extent. But now things have changed. The community of Indian writers in English, including me, are writing fiction or work of literature, creating work of literature with the smell of the soil and the sweat. We don't look down upon. It's a perspective changed. We are looking from down upwards. We are the sons of the soil or the daughters of the soil. See, sons of the soil. That's what I said. The first thing is sons of the soil. This is so deep rooted in us. We are always, we use the male adjective. Yeah. So it has changed now. Now we're all. I write about people around me, my local people, my Varkala, my Kailpuram, my Trivandrum. This one. I know I want to make this local stories global. That's what I'm trying to say. Do and nationalism. India is a beautiful idea of these diversity. So we can't change that. We shouldn't change that. That's what I feel.
Yeah, so the whole idea of plural uh, voices that gets
Stories and
into the
voices.
making
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
nation, which is like
yeah,
people keep forgetting that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, yeah, so that way it's very interesting, like, and sudden this attention to Varkala as a region. Obviously, you don't mention where Kailoram is located, but then we can kind
Yeah.
of connect it to the beach side, that region. Yeah, that brings to the next one. Since we talked about nationalism, region, and all, maybe we will push it a bit further and ask about religion, for instance. The way in which you have engaged with the question of religion, it's quite interesting, because again, like, this kind of plural, diverse approach to religion, especially coming to Islam, Muslim community in Kerala, the way you're trying to show the lived experience of a Muslim household. It's not about like how the outside perceive Islam as one very conventional, conservative group. This is like lived Islam that you're showing, and there is so much of diversity between class. There is the question of caste, conversion, everything is like
Yeah.
coming in, which is, these are all very key kind of ingredients when we think about Islam. What interested me is also the question of the structure of religion. Like, you talk about the Waqf board, you talk about transfer, you talk about religion as an institution, which is like we are familiar with Hindu, Christian, other religions, institutional structure. But Islam is treated as like, some mullah sitting somewhere and like, preaching it out to people. It is never treated as a religion which has a structure, which is like built into an organization, that kind of a, so that form, it is coming here and there. You may not be consciously doing it, but
Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah, sure. It was not a conscious effort. It's part of the narrative when that khatib is transferred from one mahalla to the other. That is a reference, But
Yeah.
I'm happy you picked it out. Yeah, there is a structure. But when I wrote it, it was I didn't actually intentionally do it, but it got into that narrative, and that's one. Second is I'm talking about conversion in that, but you remember two tribal boys
Yes.
were converted. One has gone back. That is more
Yeah,
important,
yeah.
The one stayed. So what happened? Why did the other one go back? So these are the questions I'm leaving to the readers. You know, Kochikode became Ali. The other person went back, because he couldn't resist the pull of his, community, the pull, the smell of his girl, the smell of his hut, or whatever it is. So I don't know why he goes back, but he's gone back,
Yeah.
and also circumcision. And then it's a character called Pangan, which is the first I don't know, it's a cross
Yeah.
dresser probably, So
Yeah. Yeah, those are like,
remember these are in the 70s and 80s, so
yes, yes, yeah. So even though you're talking about, you're using the word trans woman, it could be somebody who cross dresses, or like, somebody who's engaging with we can call him queer, for instance,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is like, the term that we are all familiar with. And coming to this question of circumcision and, the rigidity of religious structure and all, yeah, so I also want you to talk a little more about that question of lived Islam that I was talking about. It's not one way of belief, right? Even conversion, one person stays, one person
Yeah, there is
gets back. It's
yeah.
a very, very complex kind of phenomenon, which we kind of just put one word and try to say he was in this community. And so it's a very kind of like, there is a lot of syncretism also happening. Like you don't leave behind everything when you move into another religion. No, so
I remember, see, the grandmother, the character grandmother, when she passes away, this converted tribal boy comes back as Ali.
yeah,
She sits there and he cries because
yeah,
this woman who's loved him as a tribal boy, but when we converted into Muslim, she asked him to leave the house.
yes,
And in my mind, she's being very true to herself.
yeah,
She's not happy because this Veda boy has become a Muslim.
yeah,
He's come to the home or
yes,
something. He's happy.
yes,
She loved him as a tribal boy. She would love to love him as a
yeah,
tribal boy.
yeah.
Because he's changed into Muslim,
Ali,
and
yeah.
come back. It doesn't make it. She was actually angry at him. But when she dies, he comes back and he cries,
Yeah.
sitting at morning. So
Yeah.
these are the I want to think beyond this religion and the relationship. I want to focus on the relationships beyond this cultural or religious boundaries.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, like, let us also talk a little more about, like, you present, like, especially you're talking about the 70s, 80s, where circumcision was a traumatic experience for young boys. And
It's my lived experience.
yeah, so you talk about it as a kind of like, a terror all young Muslim boy would be like, dreading. Yeah, so this is like, are you kind of trying to represent a collective uh, kind of position there, or is it like, a very personal response to something?
Sharon, as an individual, as a writer, I don't believe in ritual. So I
Yeah,
want to say that in that chapter ends,
yeah,
says that circumcision never made me a
Muslim.
Muslim.
Okay.
It only made me a fat boy because it was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
fat called biryanis and mutton and all that. So the circumcision only made him a fat boy, not a
Yeah,
Muslim. So
yeah.
basically that chapter is against the ritual, the ritualistic of norms of a religion.
Yeah,
So
but you're also like, interestingly pointing out the change. For instance, like you're talking about how Farouk got it done in a hospital and with anesthesia and all that. You're talking about how it is done in more like archaic,
yeah,
I would say you would describe it. So in that sense, you're also talking in terms of different classes in the
yeah, because
community, right?
Farouk's father is
Is
progressive.
educated,
He doesn't
yeah.
want his son to go through that very barbaric,
Yeah,
thing of being cut in a house.
yeah,
So he takes him to a hospital,
yeah,
gives him anesthesia, and
yeah.
does that.
S-
But his cousins, Farouk's cousins,
Yeah,
I mean, they go through this harrowing experience of
yeah.
no anesthesia and nothing, and there is a case of bleeding.
Yes, yes.
Remember, so
The
so
boy
this
almost
yeah, of
died, you
course, yeah.
say. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I also, I was really happy that you showed that range, you know. In some cases now, like, you know, with education, with exposure, people are doing it in a different way.
Remember
That's
that
like,
the man from Ajmer comes for
yeah, yeah,
alms, and when they give them money, the grandmother gives them money, and this daughter says, I mean, don't bribe Allah.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
So
I,
there is a critique embedded within that discourse. That's nice. And now, Sabin, like, I also want to bring attention to something else, which you have been. I know I have read this in many narratives on childhood experience of boys in Kerala. Like, you're talking about sexual abuse and referring to that. Like, you know, for instance, like the first time we saw that in Indian English fiction would be Arundhati Roy mentioning the child sexual abuse that many young boys in India, in Kerala, like, you know, would go through. What was it to, like, you know, it, and it's very traumatic, very sad to. That's why we were saying, like, you know, the patriarchy and literacy won't like go together. So this is also something that,
yeah, I mean, Shana, I want to be very, very frank and honest. We
yeah,
talk about girls being raped.
yeah,
There are boys being abused sexually in Kerala. You know, no one talks about it.
yeah, and
But in close quarters, we discuss. Oh, I was also abused. To be, I mean, I'm telling you, I was abused when I was a child. Who will I tell to? I mean, do I tell my mother about it?
and you're also talking about relatives, people whom you are supposed to trust, like, you know, in
Yeah,
that very close circle where you should be feeling
yeah,
safe.
yeah.
That's where like the boys get
And they come
abused.
back as after a point. You know, there is a line: "Do not judge a man." I forget that. Do not judge a man for his past sins. You know,
Yeah.
this person comes back
Mm.
as a very changed man, very pious, and talks about faith, God, and this boy knows that he abused me when I was a child.
Mm.
But then he also says, don't judge a man for his
Mm.
past sins. We're trying to talk about forgiveness and all that. So, but veiled in a very veiled way.
Yeah, I also feel it's unfair that patriarchy itself is like when you talk about victim, the victim is always a woman. You even like, for instance, something like Monsoon Wedding, Mira Nair's movie. They're like, you know, you talk about abuse, but that's a girl child. And nobody talks
See,
about boys being
this is a
abused.
kind of worm
Yeah.
in Kerala that no one wants to open. You know,
Uh,
abuse of boys, and I don't want to bring in any religion. There are communities. There are. It's a multi-layered thing, Sharon. It's a very ugly thing that people don't. I mean, men of my age, when we get together now, when we discuss, say, yeah, I also had gone through that experience. It's coming out, but no one is writing about it. Now I thought I'll write about it
yeah.
in a fiction, which is much
Yeah.
safer place to write all these things.
Yes, obviously. The reference in God of Small Things is there. Like, I also was thinking at that point that there are two kids she's writing about, and she is specifically mentioning it's the boy child
Yeah.
who got abused there. And now, like, you know, when you are engaging with it, I hope this is taken up and, like, you know,
As a
pursued.
writer, I can only. I'm not a famous writer. I'm not a celebrity. I can only do my work and leave it. Someone like you pick it up, and when you write, or academic or critics write, that's their job.
No, no.
For me, I've
Obviously, I
written. Yeah.
understand. No, no, no. I'm not saying like you should do it. It's not like, but as a collective, as a society, there's something that we need to
Yeah.
kind of engage with. Um, how much more time we have? Is it like, should we open up for questions now? Pardon?
Okay. Okay. Fine. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So now, like, you know, tell us about the next project here.
No, next, actually, my edits are going on for the next novel called like Calamitous Afternoon, which is coming out from Westland. I think I would like to launch it at KLF. We are doing the edits now. It's also based in Trivandrum. It's a I mean hyper local. I write about the people around me, and I'm also writing a short story collection in Malayalam about expats' lives and all that. So yeah.
No, you have also like, you know, you've also gone through like many kind of careers as a curator of events, as an editor, as a, like, you know, as a journalist, now as a writer. So how are you connecting all these, like, you know? Oh,
Sharon,
Because to curate, it's a totally different job,
of course,
right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I know it has to be a world of letters and words for me. That is underlining. Then I become a journalist. I wrote as a journalist, edited as a journalist. Then this writing bug, when Arundhati won the Booker Prize, I was in the Gulf, and I, re- I really, I mean, very vividly remember now. Then I was sitting, we were like living in a shared flat. I told myself I too have a story to tell of my village, of the people around that. That is a story. I started writing that book then, but it got published only now as Tales from Kabristan. So that is for the last 20 years I've been writing. I got lucky as a publisher only in 2018.
Okay.
So and then curation is another phase. I love curating festivals because that put me in touch with global writers. I have so many international writers as friends now because of curation, and they inspire me to write. When I see a book, their book, I got inspired and I want to write. When I read a good line, I close the book. I want to write. So that's
Okay.
how I.
But it's also, Sabin, like, from such a renowned kind of tradition, family. As many of you would know, he's the grandson of Vakam Maulavi. So that's like, somebody, a Muslim reformer from Kerala. And like, my own research is a lot on Vakam Maulavi's work. So maybe tell us a little about how you connect with that tradition.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of my grandfather, what he's done to the society, community. He sold all his wealth for to reform the society and to to set up newspaper, to bringing the seeds of democratic seeds first time in the society, to tell the people that we are not subjects of a country but we are citizens. പ്രജകളല്ല, നമ്മൾ ജനങ്ങളാണ്, അല്ലേ? So I'm so happy and proud. And I was telling you that we just recently brought out a collection of his the magazine called Muslim, where he was the editor. It's how I'm looking at him as an editor. The kind of topics that he included when he was editing is amazing. So because, but I don't wear that in my sleeve and say I'm his grandson and all that, because that's going to be a responsibility.
Of course, I had to look up and find out. Okay, I didn't know this. Yeah, so maybe we should open up. Like, we can take a couple of questions. Please ask the questions, and you want to take one by one, or?
Yeah, one by
Yeah, please be brief, okay, so that many people can ask.
Sabine, you mentioned that circumcision have only made you a fat boy.
no, the
My-
character, not me.
Yes, yes. Character. My question is how you relate that with the Gazan children who has undergone surgery, sans, anesthesia, or painkiller.
No, see, please don't politicize it. Okay, I specifically talk about the ritual.
Okay.
It's not. I'm not talking about in an international political. Of course, we all empathize and relate to them, but there is no connection between Gazan children undergoing that and circumcision, which is narrated in this book, in this novel. Please try to be very. Please understand the narrative and
Yeah.
the context in which
Okay.
Also, I want to add that it is not a critique of circumcision
Yeah.
that he is giving there.
Okay.
He's just talking about it from different perspectives. Boys who go through it by people in the madrasa, or like, by the doctor. It's a range. Like,
you have to read the
Yeah,
novel,
get to the
then
novel.
shoot a letter, mail to me or call me, then we will have a conversation.
Okay, it is also without anesthesia.
Of course.
All circumcision.
I didn't get you.
All circumcisions is being done.
I mean, now people are going to the clinic, but otherwise it's all done at
Yeah,
home.
he's talking about the 70s,
70s.
but he's also mentioning a family that got it done with anesthesia in those years.
Okay.
So he's trying to show that range also. It's not a critique or anything, it's a personal response.
Sabin, when I read that Kabristan, Tales from Kabristan, I feel the rain, the background of the story. That is very exciting thing. When we, the local color of Kerala, the rain, and it's a water novel. I think I specifically portray in that way. That is wonderfully you done it. When we read the entire novel, the rain is coming and water is going. This also emphasizes to the characters. There is a, when we all talk that life is coming from water. Water is a major image in that novel, I think. Water and rain. How you portray that? How you bring into that?
You know, I come from a backwater village myself. You know, I live in my mother's house. When you can see a backwater like this. So, കായലും വെള്ളവും മഴയും, it's all part of my life. It's part of my growing up. You know, so at a time it was raining for 2 weeks, right? Non-stop. Yeah. So, മഴയെ നമുക്ക് ഇഷ്ടമാണെങ്കിലും മഴ നമുക്ക് റൊമാൻറ്റിസൈസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുമെങ്കിലും നിർത്താതെ പെയ്യുന്ന മഴ ദുരിതം കൊണ്ടുവരും അല്ലേ? So I'm trying to, you know, set a background to that story or memories, because we opened the novel with when it was raining in sunlight. ഖബറിസ്ഥാനിൽ 4 മണിക്ക് മഴ പെയ്യുന്നു, വെയിലും ഉണ്ട് അല്ലേ? അപ്പം ആ ഒരു മാജിക് ഇതിലാണ് ഞാൻ സെറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ ശ്രമിക്കുന്നത് ഈ നോവൽ. സോ മഴയും, താങ്ക്സ് അത് പറഞ്ഞതിൽ, മഴയും വെയിലും വളരെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻ്റ് ആണ്. അല്ല സോറി, വെള്ളവും.
Any other question you can ask in Malayalam also? Both of us understand Malayalam. He speaks quite well in Malayalam, so you can.
Wish you both all a good afternoon. I use this opportunity to proudly announce that Mr. Sabin is my classmate when we were studying in degree. And I have completed 3 books in Malayalam. Third one is published by my mother Bhumi. So I am so happy that we are studying English literature also. So I am so happy that Sabin has now grown up. Not now.
Not grown up.
No, not like that. I have told it in a very positive manner. So just asking you something before, how did you realize that there is some spark in you to write something, and which incident, whether you, when did you try to decide that something that I should write like this, and I should pen down something?
Okay, റൂബി സെക്കൻഡ് ഇയർ ആയപ്പം LICയിൽ നല്ല ജോലി കിട്ടി പോയതാ. അതിനുശേഷം ഞാൻ ഇപ്പോഴാണ് റൂബിയെ കാണുന്നത്. പക്ഷെ റൂബി ഓർമ്മയുണ്ട്, നമ്മൾ ലഞ്ച് സമയത്തൊക്കെ ഞാൻ 5 രൂപയ്ക്ക് കവിത എഴുതി കൊടുത്തിട്ട് 5 രൂപ വാങ്ങിച്ചിട്ട് വല്ലതും കുടിക്കാനും തിന്നാനൊക്കെ പോയത്. അത് റൂബിക്ക് അറിയാമെന്ന് എനിക്കറിയില്ല. കോളേജിൽ വി യൂസ് ടു ദാറ്റ്. പെട്ടെന്ന് പേരൊക്കെ വെച്ച്, പെൺപിള്ളേരുടെ പേരൊക്കെ വെച്ച് കവിത എഴുതി കൊടുത്തിട്ട് 5 രൂപ വാങ്ങി എല്ലാവരും കൂടെ കളക്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ട് അപ്പുറത്ത് പോവും. സോ ഐ നോ ഐ ഹാഡ് ദിസ് ഗിഫ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് റൈറ്റിംഗ്. എനിക്കറിയായിരുന്നു എൻ്റെ, ബിക്കോസ് വീട്ടിൽ ആ ഒരു ലിനിയേജും വായിക്കുന്നതും എഴുത്തും അതിനെ കൊള്ളാവുള്ളൂ, വേറെ ഒന്നിനും കൊള്ളൂല. അപ്പം അത് പിന്നെ അറിയാമല്ലോ, ക്രിക്കറ്റ്. ഞാൻ ക്ലാസ്സിലുണ്ടാവില്ല, എപ്പോഴും ഗ്രൗണ്ടിലായിരിക്കും അല്ലേ റൂബി? അപ്പോൾ റൂബി എപ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് പോയി. അപ്പം ക്രിക്കറ്റും ലിറ്ററേച്ചറുമാണ് എൻ്റെ പാഷൻ. അപ്പോൾ അതിപ്പോഴും അങ്ങനെയാണ്. അപ്പോൾ അതുകൊണ്ട്, പക്ഷേ എനിക്ക് എഴുതണം എന്നുണ്ട് എനിക്ക്, പക്ഷേ ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ എഴുതാൻ അറിയില്ലായിരുന്നു. ഇറ്റ്സ് എ സ്ട്രഗിൾ. യുനോ, ഒരു കവിത പിന്നെ എഴുതാൻ പറ്റും ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ, പക്ഷേ പ്രോസ് എഴുതാൻ തുടങ്ങാൻ കൈ വിറയ്ക്കും. യുനോ, എഴുതാൻ പറ്റൂല. സോ ഇറ്റ്സ് എ സ്ട്രഗിൾ ആൻഡ് ടു ഗോ ത്രൂ. ഇറ്റ്സ് നോട്ട് ഈസി. നമ്മൾ മലയാളം മീഡിയത്തിൽ പഠിച്ചു വരുന്ന കുട്ടികൾ, നമ്മൾ അറിയാമല്ലോ, ഫാറ്റിമേലൊക്കെ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് പറയാനൊന്നും നമുക്ക് പറ്റില്ല, ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് ലിറ്ററേച്ചറൊക്കെ പഠിച്ചാലും. സോ ടു മാസ്റ്റർ ദ ലാംഗ്വേജ് ഇസ് എ സ്ട്രഗിൾ. അതിന് കോൺഷ്യസ് ആയിട്ട് എഫേർട്ട് എടുത്തിട്ടാണ് കുറേ. ഞാൻ ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ലൈബ്രറിയിൽ അന്ന് ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കും, ട്രിവാൻഡ്രത്തുണ്ടായിരിക്കുമ്പോൾ അവിടെ പോയി ഇരുന്നിട്ട് ഇങ്ങനെ കാണാതെ പഠിക്കുമായിരുന്നു. ഡിക്ഷണറീസും ഇഡിയംസും പഠിച്ചേ പറ്റുള്ളൂ, ബിക്കോസ് യുനോ വി ഹാവ് ടു ഡു ദാറ്റ് എന്നുള്ള ആ പാഷൻ. ഐ വോണ്ട് ടു ബി എ റൈറ്റർ എന്നുള്ള ഭയങ്കരമായിട്ടുള്ള ആഗ്രഹം. യുനോ, സോ അത് പറ്റൂല, അതില്ലാതെ പറ്റൂല. ഐ വോണ്ട് ടു ബി എ റൈറ്റർ. സ്റ്റിൽ ഐ വോണ്ട്, ഐ എം നോട്ട് എ റൈറ്റർ, ബട്ട് സ്റ്റിൽ ഐ വോണ്ട് ടു pursue this.
You ended up writing such beautiful language, you know, it's simple and coherent, and it's like that simple language is the beauty of your work.
അത് ശരിയാണ്. The simple language is the most difficult one. So Ruby, it is an effort. Then I happen to work in an international newsroom. അവിടെ ഞാൻ ഈ കോൺവെർസേഷൻ ഇംഗ്ലീഷും എൻ്റെ എക്സ്പോഷറും ഗ്ലോബൽ ലിറ്ററേച്ചറിലേക്കുള്ള സാധനങ്ങളും ഒക്കെ കിട്ടി. പിന്നെ ഈ ലിറ്ററേച്ചർ ഫെസ്റ്റിവൽ എന്നുള്ള ബഗ് കടിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ പിന്നെ ഞാൻ വേറൊരു ലോകത്തിലേക്ക് പോയി. അപ്പോൾ അതെല്ലാം കൂടെ കൂട്ടിച്ചേർത്തിട്ട് അങ്ങനെ എഴുതും.
Any more?
Sabin, I just met you 2 weeks ago in Dubai, and one thing that I immediately noticed is that your experience is very unique. It spans across different genres and careers and etc., which I think has definitely helped or would influence your writing. But my question was, how do you keep a dream of a book for 20 years alive? And how do you keep writing and improving it and getting it to a point where it is now? I just want to preface by saying that I've just started reading your book, so I've not yet completed it. But I find that fascinating, and if you can share some of your experience.
That is Mr. Suresh. He lives in New Jersey. We just met in Dubai in a different context. That passion, that urge. This book was in me. I had to write it out. That is because I have to tell the story of my village. ആ പാഷൻ ഉള്ളിൽ ഇങ്ങനെ കിടന്നില്ല. നോ മാറ്റർ വാട്ട്. ഒരുപാട് പേരെ റിജക്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. ദിസ് ബുക്ക് വാസ് റിജക്റ്റഡ് മോർ ദൻ 5 times. I think I've lost count. പക്ഷേ once I become a published writer, it's easy to get other books out. എന്നെ എല്ലാവരും ചോദിക്കും, നീ എത്ര പ്രൊലിഫിക്കായിട്ട് എഴുതുന്നത്? സോറി, പ്രൊലിഫിക്കായിട്ട് എഴുതുന്നതല്ല, കരഞ്ഞെറിഞ്ഞ് എഴുതി അടുക്കി വെച്ചേക്കുന്ന മാനുസ്ക്രിപ്റ്റ്സ്. ആർക്കും വേണ്ടാതെ ഇരിക്കുന്ന മാനുസ്ക്രിപ്റ്റ്സ്. ഉറപ്പായിട്ടും. അപ്പോൾ എഴുത്ത് നിർത്തിയിട്ടില്ല, എഴുതിക്കൊണ്ടേയിരിക്കും. പബ്ലിഷ് ചെയ്യൂലായിരിക്കും. ബട്ട് നൗ ഐ എം ബ്രിങ്ങിങ് വൺ ബൈ വൺ ഔട്ട് because the publishers are interested. I've known them, they know me. I got 4 novels. പക്ഷേ ഈ ഫ്ലെയിം ഫയർ I keep burning. എനിക്ക് എഴുതാതിരിക്കാൻ പറ്റത്തില്ല. Whether you read or you don't read, that's your choice. But I have to write. I have a daily target of say 1,000 words. Good or bad or ugly, I just write.
So thank you very much for listening to us, and thank you, Sabin, for your work and for this conversation. Congratulations.
Thank you, Sherin, for having me in your conversation. Thank you for picking out some details which no one has done so much.
Teachers do that, professors. Okay, thank you very much.